If you would believe World War II MI6 agent Ian Fleming, later the creator of James Bond, the ideal British spy is a gentleman at heart.
But was that really the case during war? Today, we look at how MI6 went from that ideal to instead employing career criminals to do their dirty work.
Hello, darlings, and welcome back to another episode of Spies and Ties, and I'm Astrid Deinhard.
And I'm Anna Deinhard.
As World War II begins, the leaders of the British intelligence service are firm believers in an odd idea that intelligent field agents,
arguably constant liars whose very job it is to be dishonest,
should be gentlemen spies.
Or as Mansfield Cummings, founder of MI6, puts it, an agent should be a gentleman and a capable one, absolutely honest, with considerable tact and at the same time force of character. Any amount of brilliance or low cunning will not make up for a lack of scrupulous personal honesty. In the long run, it is only the honest man who can defeat the ruffian.
Well, this war will show British intelligence that that idea is a fantasy that only has its place in Pulp Fiction and Hollywood movies, and there they will fill their ranks with, say, ruffians, even career criminals.
You've already met Agent Zigzag, Eddie Chapman, gentleman burglar and confidence man, whose work for British intelligence is both very valuable and redeems his criminal past. That MI6 and MI5 are willing to give Chapman a chance is down to 2 men.
Agent Snow and Agent Celery, 2 fundamentally dishonest men. Together, they will not only change SIS standards, but one of them, Snow, sets off the operation that lead to the creation of the British double agent system, the Double Cross Committee. And I've talked a lot about that.
I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty obvious. A criminal, con artist, a swindler is who you want. If they are any good, they can appear as gentlemen when so desired, only to shed all good manners and truthfulness to achieve their goal, if necessary, at any cost.
One man, Walter Dicketts, pretty much checks all those boxes. He's a dishonest man for sure, but also brave to the point of recklessness.
His first major con job is probably when he lies about his age to get drafted into World War I at age 15. Okay, he's by far not the only one to do this. Dicketts is one of 250,000 boy soldiers who served Britain from 1914 to 1918, lying about their age at the recruitment office.
But Dicketts is set apart by his rather stellar career as a soldier. He begins as a messenger, then goes on to drive tanks, and finally becomes a pilot, dogfighting over the skies of France. In March 1918, he crashes his plane and is injured, narrowly escaping the deadliest month in British aviation history, Bloody April.
While he is recovering, he is transferred to the intelligence section of the Air Ministry and gets his first experience in the world of espionage. But the war is soon over and Dicketts finds himself out of a job.
He's only 19 and has already spent 4 years submerged in the horrors of war, surrounded by death, destruction, and despair. He has led a life of adrenaline and constant mortal danger.
Like so many men of his generation that served, he finds it hard to adjust to peacetime life. But unlike so many others, his struggles are not aimed at a return to normality. It looks like he wants new kicks. And it seems that lying about his age to get recruited is only the tip of an iceberg of dishonesty.
By 1920, he is married, but also has a mistress. And by 1922, there are, unknown to each other, the mothers of his 2 first children. first. And while they're busy being mothers, Walter is out chasing adrenaline, embracing a life of deception, fraud, and crime with fast cars, money, and, I'm afraid, more women.
He commits credit fraud, rents expensive cars using false identities, and books the most luxurious hotels under fake names. His criminal career soon extends over 3 continents: Europe, North and South America.
Intermittently, he spends short times in jail in England, France, and Austria, when he learns to speak French and German. You know, as a result of his dubious activities, he loses the rank of captain.
This loss of status and respect will go on to haunt Dicketts for the rest of his life. And by the end of the 1920s, he aims for redemption and to leave crime behind.
But a proven liar is not believed even when he speaks the truth. With all his past transgressions public, he cannot escape his reputation. So, he faces an uphill battle through the 1930s, albeit staying closer than before to the straight and narrow.
Or maybe he's gotten better at being a criminal and doesn't get caught.
Maybe. And in any case, when World War II breaks out, he sees a chance to reclaim his past and tries to get back to the army, but is rejected from service for being a convicted felon. By 1940, he's also in dire financial straits.
This is when things begin to take a turn, when Dicketts meets Thomas Wilson in a bar and they strike up a casual conversation. Wilson is actually Arthur Owens, aka Agent Snow, a pivotal figure in the British double-cross operation. Snow sees potential in Dicketts, and the two of them get along rather well.
Okay, so this Owens character is even more dishonest than Dicketts. His only aim is money, and it seems that serving or betraying his country is only a question of which is more lucrative.
Yes, Owens is a crook. He could have been a good guy, but no. He was born into the upper middle classes, and when his father died in 1920, he inherited a substantial amount of money. Money that he quickly lost on shady business investments meant to make him fast money while living far beyond his means.
To make a long story short, in the first half of the 1930s, through a failed business venture, he gets contacts to the Admiralty and is drafted as a spy for the Royal Navy. For them, he poses as a traveling salesman in marine technology and collects pictures of foreign naval installations, mainly in now Nazi Germany, that is rearming for Hitler's coming war.
Well, it's a great gig for him. He gets paid and he can, feed his ego. Which he does in a pretty stupid way. He brags about being a high-level spy, which, of course, soon comes to the attention of the German Abwehr, the military intelligence.
Yep, our old friend Admiral Wilhelm Canaris' outfit. Now, at this point, Canaris is not yet betraying the Nazis and is serving dutifully for Germany. And the Abwehr needs spies, and they're willing to pay much more.
Instead of the £20 per trip he gets from SIS, the Abwehr offers him 1,000. And go figure, he accepts the offer. So now he's a double agent for the Germans.
But that doesn't last for long. In 1936, SIS are suspicious and catch him passing intelligence to the Germans in flagranti. But in another astonishing British intelligence blunder, he isn't prosecuted. He's just dismissed, because apparently it would cause a lot of embarrassment that the double agent had pulled wool over the eyes of the SIS.
Now,
Believe
it or not, a year later he's still working for the Germans and now gets a new case officer called Nicholas Ritter, aka Dr. Rantzau. I know. Pure Bond villain name, right? Anyway, Owens' reputation has suffered from low-quality intelligence after he was caught. So he needs to prove himself.
He does, by providing the exact maps and installation schematics for the series of British aerodomes and becomes the Abwehr's one-man London outpost, London Stelle. Not only is he back in the game, the pounds sterling are rolling in droves. He moves into a posh apartment with his wife and daughter, drives a roadster sports car, and leads a generally lavish lifestyle.
Once again, too lavish, it would seem, as he quickly in need for more money. And how does Owens plan to get his money, do you think? Yes. He goes back to SIS and offers them his service once again. This time, they don't take the bait. Instead, they increase surveillance on him.
But then Germany annexes Czechoslovakia, and at SIS the need of counterintelligence agents increases. So, Owens is back in business. When Owens returns this time, they take him up on the offer. He provides them with German spy radio technology and gets taken back in. But he's still really working for the Germans, only getting paid twice.
Smart man. Then Owens does something really smart. He leaves his wife for a 20-something chick. In August 1939, he brings the new girl with him to Hamburg to sell intelligence to the Germans. Unfortunately, his wife, now scorned, knows all about his illicit activities and gets wind of the turtle's dove's tip. So she informs the SIS, who promptly arrests him on his return, right?
No, they don't. They figure it's just the ex-wife being vindictive and believe Owens when he says it's all part of the bigger plan. But hardly a fortnight later, the war breaks out. And a man we know from our previous episodes is starting to gear up MI5 operations, and that is Tar Robertson. Now, Tar does think that Mrs. Owens might be onto something and goes to see her.
What she reveals is a treasure trove of information, chief among which is that Owens has a new radio, a better radio, and that he is using it to communicate regularly with Dr. Rantzau. And this time he gets arrested, right?
Yes, this time they finally lock him up, but with the intent of still using him. Tar now puts him up to sending bogus intelligence to the Abwehr, and Owens becomes Agent Snow, the first double agent in what will eventually be the double-cross system.
The cool thing about this is that when Snow's message arrive at Dr. Rantzau's station, they are retransmitted using the super-secret Enigma code. So, long before the code crackers at Bletchley Park have cracked that code, MI5 can provide a clear transcript and a coded transcript to Bletchley. And for at least the next 24 hours, until the code settings change, Bletchley can decipher German Enigma messages.
Okay, but back to when Owens and Dicketts meet. Snow is now out of prison and ostensibly only working for the British as a double agent, right? Ostensibly. Tar is not at all sure about that, and he is keeping a very close eye on things. One of the things that Snow is charged with, as all double-cross agents, is to recruit a network of informants. I mean, fake informants, some of which don't even exist.
Over several meetings, Snow attempts to lure Dicketts into his employ, but Dicketts, a seasoned trickster, quickly begins to suspect that something isn't quite right about this Wilson character. Dicketts thinks that he is an actual German undercover agent, and that by exposing him and his associates, he may redeem himself in the eyes of the military and be allowed to serve once more.
So, when Snow leaves London in early spring 1940, Dicketts smells his chance and reports the German spying to the authorities. As a result, Tar meets Dicketts and recruits him back into working for British intelligence after 2 decades.
Essentially, he is to spy on Snow, and in parallel see how hard it would be for a German spy to get their hands on sensitive information. Dicketts, employing the cunning born from 2 decades of fraud and impersonation, proves very capable at this, striking up casual conversations with factory workers and disgruntled former employees. He is able to ascertain the production numbers of specific aircrafts, their armaments, their assembly and instruction manuals, and much more.
Dicketts has proven his worth, but isn't quite fully in yet. But in early 1941, a new opportunity comes round that will take him right into the heart of the enemy at great risk. You see, Dr. Rantzau has expressed interest in someone else willing to defect to the Germans. Tar immediately thinks of Dicketts.
Snow is to travel to Lisbon to meet with Ritter and take Dicketts along. Dicketts will play a disgruntled Englishman who, considering his former service in the Air Intelligence Service, could prove useful to the Germans. So, finally, he's back and officially gets the call sign Celery, which is a stupid name.
This is really stupid. We couldn't find out why they called him Celery, actually.
Please write it in the comments. We do not know.
We do not know. If somebody knows, please tell us. Traveling separately, Celery's arrival in Lisbon is delayed due to adverse weather conditions, making Dr. Rantzau suspicious and nervous. But Celery shows up in the last minute, and without any help from Snow, who is reportedly drunk, throughout the whole thing, Celery wins Dr. Rantzau's confidence and gets invited to Germany.
Snow is excluded as Dr. Rantzau has lost confidence in him and leaves him in Lisbon. Once in Germany, Celery will be tested, and this can prove very dangerous indeed. Dicketts was very well aware that his life depended on the outcome of his impending game of questions and answers. The fact that he nevertheless placed his neck in the German news must surely rank as one of the bravest deeds ever enacted during World War II.
Celery navigates through Barcelona and Stuttgart to Hamburg, where he confronts a swarm of intelligence-hungry experts from the German Army, Navy, and Air Force. With drugs on standby to knock him out and the Gestapo listening from the next room, Dicketts faces relentless interrogation upon his arrival.
The first day of interrogation lasts from 8 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. One thing is abundantly clear to Dicketts: the Germans are suspicious. 5 more days of intense interviews follow. Celery uses his photographic memory, remains steadfast, and endures the endless flow of questions and interjections, continuously providing focus and cohesive answers. On the morning of the 6th day, the exhaustive interrogation concludes, and Celery has passed the test.
Later, he is taken on a tour of Hamburg, showcasing ample food supplies, minimal damage from British bombing raids, and the positive spirit of the German people. There, he notices 2 submarines in the harbor and chats with a waiter who reveals they're produced at a nearby shipyard, with a rate of about 2 per week. Soon after, Celery's visit is about to come to an end.
Yet one final challenge awaits. The infamous Reinhard Heydrich, head of the Sicherheitsdienst, SD, has gotten wind of an alleged British defector in the hands of the Abwehr. Now at this point, shortly before he will be killed, Reinhard is certain that Canaris and the Abwehr are not working fully for Nazi Germany, maybe even betraying her, and he's right.
So, Heydrich dispatches a formidable SS Sturmbannführer to capture Sellery. In response, Canaris orders Sellery to return to Britain, and with the Abwehr's assistant, Dicketts evades the SD at his Hamburg hotel and catches a flight to Lisbon and then a flight back to Britain.
But what happened? How could Heydrich get wind of Sellery?
Well, Snow betrayed him to the Germans before he went to Germany. The idea was that he was to be shot by the Germans. You see, Dr. Rantzau has had doubts about Snow's loyalty for a while and confronted him. True to himself, Snow confessed to everything. Then Snow returned to London and claimed he had told Dicketts as much, and that he went to Germany nevertheless.
This puts MI5 and Tor in a difficult position. If Snow is telling the truth, then Dicketts has likely really defected to the Germans. If not, Snow essentially sent a fellow agent to his certain death, perhaps hoping he would never return to tell the tale. Either way, one thing is certain, there is at least one traitor in the employ of MI5, and the double-cross operation has lost much of its value.
Consequently, upon his return, both men are separated and days of intensive interrogations follow. Dicketts, who just escaped German interrogation hell, understandably is disgruntled to get the same treatment by his fellow countrymen.
However, rather quickly, some evidence points towards Snow. For one thing, £10,000, almost 420,000 today, and worse, explosives in his luggage, and he constantly contradicts himself. Sellery, on the other hand, remains steadfast and truthful.
Thus ends the career of Agent Snow. For a time, the most important and useful British double agent, and Owens is put into prison for the rest of the war. Unfortunately for Dicketts, Sellery is now a compromised agent, and he is sent to South America, where gradually he is phased out and leaves MI5 in 1944.
So, how does this story end?
Well, cut forward a couple of years and meet Charles Stewart Pollock. A wealthy English businessman and philanthropist, owns multiple prestigious estates with business interests spanning from real estate to mining. In reality, what do you think it is? He is Walter Dicketts, who has reverted to his usual self, running a Ponzi scheme that will ultimately crumble. On April 1st, 1949, he surrenders himself, serves 2 years in prison, then departs for Malaya. Little is known about his life thereafter, and he passes away in August 1957.
And what about the idea of the gentleman spy?
Well, MI5 and other British intelligence services learn from their operations throughout the war. Individuals such as Dicketts, who perform their duty admirably and against all odds, clearly show that a criminal past does not disqualify anyone from being a good agent. To the contrary, the skills and the capabilities one develops in a criminal career can be very useful in intelligence work. Thus, the British relinquish their doctrine of the gentleman spy and accept that under certain conditions the most despicable and shady of individuals can be of the most use.
To see the story of the other very charming conman turned great spy Eddie Chapman, aka Agent Zigzag, click here.
No, here.
Okay, click there.
And remember that our operations are the success of the intelligence and finances of the Time Ghost Army. So join at timeghost.tv or patreon.com, and we will see you next time. Darlings.